Did you prelude already, or do you want to be preluding?
Huh?
Did you prelude already, or should I start in? Or?
Oh, I'm just.
Good morning, everybody. We're a little late beginning, but you know what? It's all good because everybody's visiting and talking, and that's kind of what church should be. So, but we shall begin. Patty was playing in the background as well, so that was sort of our prelude as we work in this morning. So good morning and welcome. I'm Reverend Susan Frawley. It is my honor and privilege to be in the pulpit this morning. And as we go forward, share land and social justice acknowledgements. The land that our church sits upon is land that was stewarded by the Haudenosaunee people. It is land that is considered sacred and holy, and it is our obligation to uphold that. As Unitarian Universalists, social justice is part of the core of our values, and so we pledge to rise up in love with those who are pressed down in society, those who are oppressed, those whose voices are not fully at the table. We make not only an invitation to sit, but we make an opening for all voices and for all opinions to be heard and supported. And so I call you to be present. Take a moment, turn off your cell phones if you haven't already, and just take in our sanctuary on this morning. As every Sunday morning, our sanctuary is different. Different light, different heat, different smells, different atmospheres, sometimes different energy, depending on what is going on in the week or the day. So just take a moment to ground yourself and be present. Our opening words this morning come from Mary Oliver. It is from a poem, Blackwater Woods. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich and fragrant cinnamon of fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds, and at every pond, no matter what its name is, it's nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads me to this: the fires in the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes, to let it go. To let it go. These are the words of Mary Oliver. And so I invite you to find our chalice lighting words. And I'm not sure who our host or other person was this morning that will light our chalice. Marge is going to take care of that for us this morning. Is that me, the feedback I'm hearing? I know I get into this weird Bermuda triangle of feedback from my mic, that mic, and whatever's over there. Let us recite our chalice lighting words together. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, and to serve you, Spirit of Freedom. Patty, what hymn are we going to sing this morning?
Just as long as I have breath.
Just as long as I have breath. Is that number 6?
6, yes.
So if you could find number 6 in your hymnal, Patty will play us in. And
moccasins on the wrong feet.
Okay.
Just as long as I have
long as
It is part of our tradition, it's part of our ritual of being together in community, to take time to share our joys, our sorrows, and concerns. We have our little sand vase over here where you can come and light a candle to share a joy, a sorrow, or concern. We also have a memorial vase where if you want, you may take a stone and you may place it inside. I'm placing one this morning in memory of my Aunt Kathleen, who passed away this past week. It's been my tradition since 2 years ago, October 7th, to light a candle, and at that time it was for the release of all hostages. And I'm still continuing that practice. So this candle is for the release of all hostages throughout our world and for peace on our planet. And so now I invite you to come forward, share a joy, a sorrow, or concern.
So I have a dog named Pablo, and he notices things. And Monday night, he kept going over to the steps, the door at the steps that go up into our attic, and barking. And I kept telling him, there's nothing there, go back and lay down. And he kept going back and barking and barking. So I finally went over and I opened the door, and I didn't see anything till I looked down. And there was this little brown bat hanging from one of my steps. So I closed the door and I stuffed a pile of towels and things in there, and I did some reading, and it turns out that it was probably hibernating and looking for a warm place to hibernate. And so I said, okay, you stay up in the attic and then you'll go away in the spring. Well, the next day when I got up, I have decorative tins in my kitchen, and several of them were on the ground, and I couldn't figure out why that would happen. But I just said, oh, maybe there was a truck that went by and it moved my house and, or windy or something, and a couple of the tins fell down. So I didn't think anything of it. So I was in and out of the house all day, and then we went for a long walk. And when we got back after dark, I walked into the kitchen, turned the light on, and there's the bat hanging from one of my shades. So I called animal control. I was just going to try and catch it myself, and then I thought, well, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to put it back up in the attic, and then it'll probably just get back in my house again? And the problem with bats is that they're considered rabid unless proven otherwise. Two good things: I am rabies vaccinated, having been a veterinarian. Erie County vaccinated a lot of us about 20 years ago. And my dog just got his rabies vaccine boosted. I feel like I've killed Stella Luna. The animal control guy came, they euthanized the bat. It's being sent to Albany. I will find out early this week whether it was rabid or not. And according to the CDC website, Pablo and I will have to get our rabies vaccines boosted several times if it's positive. If I had not been rabies vaccinated, I would have to go through rabies human immunoglobulin injections as well as getting rabies vaccinated. So at least I won't have to do that. But the poor animal control guy and I kind of were like, we're killing Stella Luna. And he actually told me this year they've had a lot more bats getting in houses. He said this was his third call so far. And he said the last one he had made him feel really bad because it was a mom with her baby. So I'm lighting a candle for the bat.
There you go. All right.
Hi, my name's Meg. You know I always get up here. I like the camera. It's funny that you should say bat, because I said I overslept and I drove like a bat out of hell. But I don't know where that came from, that saying, bat out of hell. Ozzy Osbourne, maybe? I don't know. You know, Albert Einstein had a question is the universe friendly? And for most of my life, I say, no, it's against me. You know, I just better party it up and live, you know, to the fullest, because I'm going to probably die. Skylab, I used to say Skylab is falling, you know, that's how old I am. Or a meteor was going to come. But you know, I miss gratitude, and that's changed. I do believe that the universe is a friendly place. Yesterday, I was on the reservation, and I was telling the man, I only had I needed to get home, and I said, just put 5 in. Some friends in the church, God bless them, are helping me with some gas tomorrow. He said, they are? That's so beautiful. And then he said, you know what? I'm going to put this into the hose into the tank, and I don't want you to look. And when it stops, that's how much gas I want to give you. So he put 20 in my tank for free. I started crying. I just couldn't believe the kindness, you know. I didn't ask him to do that, or the beautiful people in the church here. It's just, you know, and then I talked about in my sermon about how gratitude is that sudden surprise of mystery. Like, wow, I got the bigger piece of cake, you know. But then the full circle of it is what they call now pay it back, which I don't really like paying. You don't have to pay, because that's what we want to do. We get a gift, we want to give something right back, right? So that we're even, you know, so I don't owe you anything. But that's not the way it works, you know. The heart works. Like the Quakers, the Spirit moves you to give, and it doesn't have to be a material thing. So I guess I got to give something. Well, with that, I'm grateful to be here. Would anybody else like to come up and do a trial or tribulation of joy? I think a weird one.
It just represents, I guess they figure, because they dart around. But the first name that came up was Meatloaf in that rock opera. and so there we are.
My mother used to say that all the time.
Yep. Yep. Is there anyone else who wishes to share a joy or a sorrow or a concern? Marge has the mic up here. Marshall's coming to get the mic.
Yes, just a few days ago when I was checking my phone in the morning to see what email I had, I did get a notification from the United States State Department indicating that Eric's interview would be on January 9th. So we were very happy about that. I was anticipating we would hear from them sometime in January, but so this was a little sooner than I had expected. So we're preparing for the interview, and we're going to be taking the train from Toronto to Montreal on the 8th, staying overnight for 2 nights, and then going back to Toronto. So please keep us in your thoughts and your prayers, and we hope that everything transpires quickly. They said that after the interview, usually the situation's resolved. You know, the visas are awarded within 60 days, but sometimes it can take much longer. So I'll keep you posted. So thanks.
I can't resist. So I had a bat in my house, and we were living in Taiwan. I'm by myself. I have a 1-year-old child in bed, and the maid's in the kitchen in her room, because you have to have a maid in your house. And all of a sudden, I'm watching TV, and I see these little claws coming up the fireplace screen, and this face sticks out the top, and this bat starts flying around. Flies into the kitchen, because we keep the kitchen light on at night because we have cockroaches, and it flies in the kitchen, and I'm screaming, and the maid comes out, takes one look, so goes in her room and slams the door. So I'm in the house by myself. This thing's flying around. All of a sudden, it landed on the ceiling fan, and it folds up and it's hanging there. And I thought, what if I turn this fan on? So has a rheostat. I turn this fan, it's going, turn it up, it's going. Pretty soon I got this thing whipping. I thought maybe I can make it dizzy and I'll fall off and I'll catch it in this grocery bag with this broom. It gets dizzy, falls off. I get it in the grocery bag with my broom. I go outside. We have a wall around our house. I fling this bag open into the field, and that's my wonderful story of my joy.
Oh, she didn't hear.
I was totally
Yes.
It's in Taiwan.
I even have a video of my bat. I think it was the first year I was here, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, what the heck, a bird in the house? That's not good. And then I saw that it was a bat, and it flew around in the, what I call my keyboard room. I thought, well, what in the world am I going to do to get it out? So I ran around flapping a piece of paper. I opened up the fire escape, and he flew out. So I stood there thinking, well, he didn't explode in the sunlight.
Does anyone else wish to share a joy, sorrow, concern, or a bat story? It's a good morning for those.
Mine's only concern is I hope I'm not next.
There you go. Doctor would it's the season, isn't it now, for bats or for things that come in from the cold into the warm?
Yeah, what got me thinking about bats is they're actually, vampire bats are moving north. And they're now in Mexico and Texas. You never used to see them. And vampire bats feed on cattle and people if they find them.
Ooh.
And they are one of the biggest sources, that and wild animals. Hundreds of thousands of people die from rabies in the world every year. We don't see it because we vaccinate our dogs. But yeah, it's a real problem.
Yeah. And as we've heard the stories this morning. So for all the joys, for the sorrows, for the concerns, for the bats, to all of these we give our best intentions, our best energies. We bless them. Amen and a women. And so this morning, where the sermon focus is on something called Death Box, which I'll explain as we go forward. But there was a wonderful essay by Julia Cho, and she wrote, "What I Discovered About Living." And I'm going to read that to you this morning for our spiritual practice. These are her words. "Having to navigate the years after my husband's sudden, out-of-order death made me feel a sense of urgency about preparing my own life in case something sudden should happen to me, especially since I now was the sole parent of our 1-year-old daughter, who I knew would have no memory of her father. First, there were what I called memory projects, and they were of the utmost importance in those early days of loss. They involved gathering letters from his friends and family about him and putting them in an album for her to read one day, and printing out a blog that he'd kept about her after she was born, so she could know a little bit of his voice and how he spoke about her. One of his quotes was always, "Isn't she awesome?" But after the safety of the cocoon of grief, of the worst has already happened, being over, a new anxiety about something happened. What if I died too? Who would tell her my stories, or let her know how I spoke about her, or remind her of memories we shared once, the child amnesia that sometimes steals those memories from everyone? So there were more to-do lists for me: purchase life insurance, make a will, choose guardians wisely, all of the important things. Exercise, take my vitamins, never miss a mammogram. And every year I wrote her a long letter about all the special things that we had done that year. But I also wrote about the simple things, like the imaginary games she enjoyed at the time when I was writing, and the particular vernacular that we used at that moment. These were the kinds of words and inside jokes that would be forgotten in a year or so if they weren't recorded. And so while everyone else was konamaring their homes, I was reading The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleansing. I was minimizing and labeling so that in case of an emergency, people would be able to step in and find information that I, even as a spouse, had had to really search for when my husband died. As a writer and collector of quotes, I even started marking an F for funeral next to quotes that I wanted at mine. Turns out it takes a lot of time and energy to practically prepare for your death. For me, it's taken 11 years. My daughter has officially become a teenager in that time. She asks me one day about my dreams for the future because she's always trying to narrow down her own vision for herself. I'll be a classical pianist. I'll have an Etsy shop with my art, and I'll write young adult novels, she says. I'll live on a farm with an art studio in the barn, she continues. And it is then that I realize that I've put a lot of thought and preparation into what if I'm not here, and very little into the what if I am. So maybe in some ways it's easier to plan for my own death than my life. Funeral homes are neat and sterile. birthing rooms are messy. Preparing for death is limited in its tasks. Life opens up in every direction. Death, eventually, is certain. Facing an uncertain future where catastrophic things can happen, where hearts can break, and life can change in a moment, takes courage. And these are the words of Julie Cho. So at this time, we will take up our offertory, which goes to serve the good works of this church. So my parents had a box in their closet, in their bedroom. It was an old Florsheim's shoebox. Any of you remember that store? It was a store long ago where men often bought their business shoes from, as did my father. And in that box were all the things my parents knew were important. Birth certificates, Dad's Army discharge, wedding certificate, insurance papers, mortgage information, and later in life, it held healthcare proxy, power of attorney, and funeral arrangements. We called it the death box. Now, we knew of the box, not exactly about all what was in it, just that my parents often reminded us that everything that we needed to know when that time came was in there. And I never really thought about the death box for most of my life. I knew it was up in the closet. I'd see it there if I had to go into my parents' closet for something. But other than that, never gave it much thought. When my father developed end-stage Alzheimer's / Parkinson's, I was so glad that we had that box. Mom was still alive, and she took the lead on all things that we needed to do to keep Dad comfortable and to help him to have a good death. A death that he had outlined about how he would like it. DNR. And after death, he was donating his body to UB Med School. He always enjoyed telling everybody at the time of his retirement, and when they would ask him, "What are you going to do now, Bob, that you're retired?" And his response in his typical Irish way was, "I'm going to med school." And he did. Not just planning for the physical aspects of death, but my parents had worked with a great man, Joe Scroy, now also a blessed memory. His son runs their company. But Joe had this amazing way of doing financial planning business, especially with people who may be somewhat hesitant, as was my parents' cadre of the time. He helped them and had them to prepare for all the financial things that would take place at death, and as well as taking care of my mom and taking care of the house. Now, most people don't want to talk about death. No, 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 please don't bring that up. No, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about it. Few want to talk about the last stages of life. It's somehow that if by not talking about it, they can put off the inevitable. We are all going to die. It's a fact of science. We don't know how, and we don't know when. Sometimes disease might play a part, sometimes aging, sometimes an accident, but it will happen. Now, planning for death is not fully for the person who's going to experience it, although sharing your final directives really helps for your family or loved ones to fulfill your wishes. But it also helps those who are left. When I was doing chaplain training, I often had to meet with families where there were no directives and no decisions had been made for the loved one. I have never seen such fights and arguments in the waiting room. Everyone was sure that they knew what was best, and it often clashed with what others in the family thought was best. And in that moment, when they all needed support and love amongst themselves and from others, the fighting took the greater line. And if the person was still alive, it also robbed them of the ability to put their best energy forward for that person who was preparing for their final journey. My parents gave my siblings and I the greatest gift, the death box. It spelled out everything, including who was in charge of what. And I realized when we were in situations with both my parents at different times that having that box, in some ways, it helped save our family. Because there was no fighting, there was no usurping, there was no arguing. We could just focus on both my parents, helping them in that gentle journey towards death. One of the most important pieces of paper is the healthcare proxy. Now, you don't have to be at the point of death for this, but if you've had a doctor visit, they may have asked you, do you have a healthcare proxy? And if you don't know what that is, it's a piece of paper that is witnessed by two other individuals. It doesn't need legal representation or notary, but it's something that you can keep, you can give to your doctor, you can have with you if you're in hospital, and it allows someone to speak for you when you are incapable of speaking for yourself. And if something occurs that then you are able to speak for yourself, the proxy goes aside. This is so important because, again, you may have wishes, you may have things and directives that you want for your life. But if nobody knows, then no one's able to go forward. It's great to give this essay to your doctor. It's great to give it to the person who's the healthcare proxy. And it's great to put it in, if not a death box, a life box. Why? Because, well, when those moments come, there's a lot of people that have important papers, and they are in locked boxes, perhaps in your home, or maybe you're one of those fireproof little satchels that's up in a closet. Some people have even put them in safety boxes at the bank. But in that moment of most need, those who need it are probably not going to be able to access it, especially if they don't have a key to any of those areas. So the best piece of advice, my friend Jim Bardo from Amherst, who does a whole program on preparing in papers, that was one of the coolest things because I had not heard that until that moment, that keep things handy. Well, I know my children, in fact, probably more than they ever want to know sometimes, know where my death box is. It's right up in my bedroom closet on the top shelf. I talk about it a lot to the point where they do a lot of gobsmacking, going, why do you do this? But I want them to know. I want them to know that plans are in place. I want them to know where the papers are. I want them to know who has it. I want them to not have to worry. I'd actually include passwords for all your social media, for bank accounts, since everything's digital, all the things that they would need. because I don't want them to have to go through what I've seen other families go through. And telling them about the box also opened up a lot of great conversations about what happens when you die and what are your wishes. And while I can tell them mine, I got to listen to them too. I will tell you that most people never ask teenagers, what do you think happens when you die, and what would be your wishes? And I found this out especially, I was driving Max and a bunch of his friends out to North Tonawanda to go see a play. And of course, in my typical way of making conversation, I threw it out there. Hey guys, what do you think happens when you die? Of course, Max is there going, oh God, Dad, no, you're not doing this. And the kids were kind of struck, and I'm like, I'm just curious what you think. There's no wrong answers. And his friends were silent for a moment, and then little by little, they started talking about things that they were taught, things that they believed, things that they sort of thought about. And it was really cool. And we talked about, well, what do you think your funeral? Would you have a funeral? Would you not? Like, what do you think? Have you ever been to a funeral? Surprisingly, 1 out of 4 of these teenagers in my car had been to a funeral. The others had not, and they were 17 years old. Yeah, interesting. But the conversation was rich. Of course, Max is dying in the front seat, regretting that I was driving them to the show. He should know better, for the questions that we have. But later, when we were in the lobby, waiting, I think it was intermission for the show, and I overheard one of the friends say to him, hey, Max, your dad asks really cool questions. Yeah. He doesn't know I heard that, but it felt right to me. And I guess I've always felt that way too, both as a parent and as a sort of a parent adjacent when the other kids would come around. Our table was always the place where we could talk about the things that maybe you didn't talk about at other places, or you could ask the questions that you couldn't ask somewhere else. And so in that line of my parents taking care of me and my siblings, I've done the same for my children. They know where everything is. They know who the healthcare proxy is. It's actually my sister-in-law, who has the same name as me, so I had to put her middle name in there so there wasn't crazy confusion. Someone said, why did you do your sister-in-law? You have 2 sisters. I'm like, I do, and they're good people. But I saw when they were put into those roles, it was very difficult for them. So my sister-in-law says, what, you think I just pulled the plug? I wouldn't have any feelings about it? No, Sue, I know that you and your personality, you would do what someone asked of you. Yeah, I'm sure you'd have feelings, but that's a really important part of choosing who your healthcare proxy would be. You have to trust them to do the hard things, which is why it's important to talk to someone. Don't just pick a family member, makes sense, but make sure that they are ready to step up if that moment happens, and that they know all of your wishes. It's an important thing. As you use, we all carry very different ideas about what happens when you die. And who's to say who's right? Because we won't know until that happens, actually. But whatever your beliefs are, whatever your thoughts are, they are your own, and they are nurtured and supported and loved. Even our death rituals in the UU faith are unique and different. Some are funerals, some are celebrations of life, some are remembrances, some are burial. The final moments are as unique as every one of us. And that goes along with our former principle and part of our values, a free and responsible search for your own independent understanding of what is true and real. I've officiated dozens and dozens, actually probably it's more than dozens, of different, I'll say, funerals. No 2 were ever the same. My favorite funeral, if you can have a favorite funeral, was a funeral home that was near me, that if someone didn't have clergy, they would call on different people in the community that they knew. I would get calls every now and again. And I got this one call. Gentleman was part of a biker group, not a gang, but a biker, a biker club. And he was being waked, and he was going to have his ceremony there. And they just wanted somebody to do some words. I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. So I show up in my clergy garb, and of course there's all these bikers with the leather jackets and the vests and the headbands and everything else. In fact, as I walk in, there's like a row of about like 20 motorcycles. They were going to go in front of the hearse for the final interment. So I met with the family, talked with them a little bit, and then I met with some of the members of the club to find out what they wanted. And they were so interesting because one of them said, I've never talked with a minister before. And I said, oh, well, I'm happy to speak with you. And so we included some of those things. And one of the things that the group wanted is before they left, they wanted to have a group bike blessing. And I said, okay, I can do that. Really, you can do that? I'm like, sure. They're like, but we're not of your faith. I'm like, it's okay. And again, one of the most, let's say, neutral bike blessings maybe that ever was done. And these guys were wild. They're all crying and sobbing, and they were full of their moment. But the most important thing is that they were seen and heard. And when there's those final moments, that's the thing that's most important. And so for those who are left, if you can create or open that door, as the family of this gentleman did with his club group, and allow that to happen, that's part of that healing. Sometimes that can be written in the box as well. But it's important. In fact, if you have plans, it's important to give it to your minister or maybe at your church. I actually hold several people's plans that if something was to occur, I know what they would want. And in connection with the family, we'd be able to do that. Our spiritual practice author says that death rooms are sterile and neat compared to birthing rooms. I think that's true. I've been in both. But without preparation, conversation, planning, and writing it all down, those death rooms can be messy and confusing and loud with fighting, which can rob you of what can also be called a good death. So, plan for a good death. Plan for a good passing. Think about a death box gift for your loved ones. And so now it is the time where we do talk back. This is your opportunity to speak and share your thoughts, your ideas, challenges or critiques about anything that we've talked about this morning. I'm going to turn my mic off so we don't get the feedback. I invite you to talk back. You can, yeah, because the mic, it'll help other people to hear. Or we could pass the mic back. I think it's making its way.
It's a wonderful sermon and topic. Back in 1997, my stepfather gave me this book called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And I also had the book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which I hadn't read. It was too complicated as a teenager to read it, but I had it, and I didn't read the other one either. It was on my shelf, though. Somebody died. Oh, he died. Yeah. And I picked up the book and I started reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, and learning and what I haven't read all the way through. Somehow I keep getting stuck. What I learned from it was that if we can accept and not be in fear of death, we can embrace life. And they believe in like 4 stages of the cycle of life. That there's a space as you're dying too, that you're going through. That's a part of the cycle. My mother is very close to myself in age, so I figured I'd go before she would, you know. But now, you know, she's almost 80, and I'm asking those questions because she just moved and her papers are all over the place. And I never called it a death box, but I have a file folder box that I keep all my important papers, and I've told my daughter my wishes. But my mother, you know, she's just, you know, and I know she wants to be cremated. I don't know how it's going to get paid for, but then I found out she has a burial fund. These are the questions I have to keep asking, and every time it's painful because it's reminding me it's imminent. But they have to be asked to be prepared. My sister and I don't get along all the time, and I can see those kind of fights happening when the time will come. So now I'm preparing to like that, to have peace during those times. I don't want to have my mother's passing be a fight in the hospital room. So we sat down, and she does have a DNR and a health proxy. I'm her health proxy. She wants to have her ashes scattered over Cuba Lake. That's where we grew up in Ithaca. So, there's some plans, but I'm still not sure because I'm going to be the one that goes there into her apartment and finds her when she's passed. I come there like 4 times a week. She doesn't leave her apartment very often. So that's going to be really hard, So I better have some support in my life at that moment, because I'm an alcoholic and I do not want to drink over that. That would be the worst thing. My mother would really not want that. So I'm preparing by having a support system like you all and for death too. I do believe that I believe that we all have our own journey towards death and rebirth, and whatever you choose to believe. I believe that we do have a rebirth of our spirit, and that we learn our lessons, and if we haven't learned them, we're going to learn them maybe in the next time, and that gives me hope. And I just hope that when I do pass, I've left this world in a tiny, tiny better place. Thank you.
Oh, Paul. I think it's on.
Well, I guess I kind of have a tough one here. I'm lighting a candle myself for concern because, as most of you know, I've been taking care of my 90-year-old parents. Actually, my dad is 90. My mother is my stepmother, who's my dad's wife. But they've made almost absolutely no plans at all. And whenever my dad tried, I guess my stepmother wouldn't let him years ago, whatever. They do have a will, but the executor of the will is my youngest stepbrother, David, who lives in Florida. And he because of his alcoholism, he ended up in a nursing home. He's incompetent to be the executor, so I guess I've got my work cut out for me, because I got to see the attorney in Wellsville and see what I can do about becoming the executor of their will. And as far as the death box, it's interesting you brought that up, because I find myself actually making a death box for my own dad and my stepmother, because they never made one. I think that's all I can say about this.
So one thing that's going on my death box list, if Deacon Mike and I don't get this done in the next little while, well, it's got to get done, because I got to be alive to do it. He has agreed to make a video with me. I'm going to be standing here hitchhiking a ride, and he's going to come driving along in his hearse, or whatever you call those things. He's going to get out. He's going to come around, and then somebody, I think it might have been Jeff, or it might have been Bill, he says, well, is he going to open the side door? Is he going to go around and you're just going to crawl in the back, or how are you going to work that? But I do have a death box upstairs, and I did mention it to Erica at one point, but I never actually told her where it was in case I happened to croak while I'm here. So I guess I better get on that.
Teresa. No, you're okay. I just Teresa was coming up for the mic.
I carry my health proxy with me in my purse. It's a good idea to have it on you at all times, because if you get in an accident, they're going to search your body if you can't respond, and at least that way they'll be able to contact the person who's your health proxy, and they'll be able to follow your wishes.
Okay, I actually bought a thing online called NOK, like next of kin. So it's a box full and it has all the labels where you put all your important paperwork. And I'm like, I hope I don't die in America because like Avi wouldn't know how to navigate anything. Like he has no idea about bank accounts or anything like that. I just do everything. He has no idea how anything works. So I'm hoping I'm in Nepal when I die. And they just carry your body down and light it on fire and throw it in the river. Like we've gone to Pashmati or whatever it is, and it's the river, and you would literally see them bringing ambulances, bringing bodies, and like doing the ceremony, saying the prayers over them, covering them up, dipping their feet in the water, putting them on the wood and burning them. And like when I see these, literally the ambulances are backing up to it and people are like carrying out the stretchers, like these people like were probably like awake this morning and now they're like getting burned. Like it's so quick and like, yeah, it's just, it was pretty wild the first time I saw that. But yeah, I kind of hope I'm in Nepal so I can just be done with it.
Does anyone else have anything? Yes, go ahead, come on. That's an important thing too, the music that one might want, good things to write it down. One of my son's regret, I said, I want Pink Pony Club played on a cello and a violin. And he has two friends who sing both. I said, there's actually things in the box for Gwen and for Jonah to play that song. He's like, how soon are you planning on going? I'm like, well, but yes, music, yeah, the music wishes are so important. Those are things, good things to write down. Anyone else? Anything? Go ahead, yes. You know what, I'll walk this back to you. There you go. I heard it click, so.
There is in New York State a yellow form with a sticker that comes with it. If you put the sticker on the back bottom of your car windshield, an EMT person would know to go into the glove compartment where the yellow form is completed with all kinds of information. You can also put the little sticker on your door of your house, and an EMT will go into the freezer and look for a sealed plastic waterproof bag with all of your instructions. And if I haven't brought them over, I will bring some. I also have in my car on the glove compartment just an inconspicuous little thing that says the name and phone number of someone to call in case of emergency. And I think I even know one person who is 90-something who keeps his health proxy and everything right inside his front door, just the whole thing hanging there. It's very, very important to do that because I think, and Teresa would know by law, the EMTs have to take action. And even with the forms, first of all, they have to find the form, but then I think sometimes they are reluctant to follow your wishes. Very important. I wonder if I brought over these yellow forms. If not, I'll bring them next week.
I'll use my return opportunity to just say thank you for bringing this up. I think it's very valuable and very useful, and it's hard for people to talk about these things. And, you know, for you to do this, it's a great service to the congregation. So thank you.
Paper signings, and just as you had mentioned about the yellow form, that might be something in the future that the congregation wants to have those. The healthcare proxies, again, you don't need to have a lawyer. It just needs 2 witnesses. The other forms as well, and there's places that are just during fellowship time, let's have a little death, whatever, and people are signing and witnessing for each other and walking away with the papers that they need. So it's easy enough to do. Anything else that anyone wishes to share? Yes.
I can't quote it right, but I read a man was asked, "The world is going to end tomorrow. What are you doing? If you know the world's ending, why are you doing this?" He says, "I'm still going to plant my apple tree." And I thought, what does that mean? And my mom said that meant hope. That's about hope. And Jen can speak to this more than I could, but with Native Americans, like they think of the next 7 generations during their life. And after their death, the next 7 generations, how our actions affect them and our children. So that lends itself to this discussion also, because our current government does not think about the next 7 generations at all, and the state of the earth shows for that, and the extinction of so many species, and our own species as well, eventually. But so again, hope and being grateful and staying in the day for one more day, or live like you may live forever. Thanks.
You put in the holder. So I want to thank you all for sharing. As a community, it's important of sharing your ideas, sharing your feedback, having your comments. Your voice is probably one of the most important for this pulpit. And there is the speaking, and there's also the listening to each other, which is what makes us such a rich congregation in that sharing. But selfishly, again, when you do this, you minister to me. And for that, I am very grateful, and I thank you for that. We are going to do hymn 354, We Laugh, We Cry. So I'll give you a chance to find that in your hymnals.
Sue,
yes?
For expediency's sake.
Yes, I was just going to look.
Could we do the first and fourth verse?
Yes.
Because then for the postlude, I was going to have everybody sing at least one verse of 264.
Sure. So we're going to do the first and which?
Fourth?
First and fourth. So we are going to do the first and fourth verses of We Laugh, We Cry. Patty's going to play us in, and I invite you to sing along. Announcements. Does anybody have any announcements for the good of the congregation? Yes, there's one from the back, and then. Oops, was I smacking around? I think it's on. Thank you. It's not.
Hello?
Try pressing here.
Hello?
She says it's on.
There it is. Okay.
Okay.
Green light. Okay. So we're getting the caring committee kind of back up and running. We kind of fell apart during the pandemic. So with Jen's help and Marge, Jean Speck at a distance is going to be helping, and myself, we're trying to get reorganized, and Jean is very luckily agreed to keep sending cards out. So we kind of have to keep track of who's not well and what's going on, and then bring it to our attention, and we'll be getting in touch with Jean by email. In the meantime, what we're going to do is collect everybody's birth dates. So if you don't want a birth date acknowledged, would you please put that on your card? Don't not hand one back in. Give us a card and just say, do not publish or do not acknowledge. So, and if you know of someone that's not here, add them to the card as well. So I'll pass out income taxes. Well, that's another story. I'll pass out the index cards, and if you'll just put your name and your birth date on it, that would be great. And like I said, if you don't want it acknowledged, just ask not to be published.
I have a few. I wanted to mention John Snodgrass. I mentioned him. He will be here next week. He'll be doing a sermon next week. He will also be doing December 14th. He will be having a procedure December 19th. He said it should not interfere with his coming to our services. He did not tell me exactly what his procedure was, but it's December 19th. Ron Skoronsky messaged me last week. He said about his health, which scared me because he wanted me to call him, but he said he's having a small procedure December 2nd. He's fine. He said everything could be okay. He will not be able to be here December 7th. He's very sad he's not going to see us in December. He says he wanted me to tell everybody how sad he is. He's not going to see us. But I was able to get a hold of Bob Lavalley?
Lavalley.
Yeah, I say Lavalley.
Yep.
He is very excited. He said he would love to come December 7th. He already sent me his order of service. He's so excited. For those of you who remember, he was ordained here. If you read the announcements, I put a few pictures of his ceremony in the announcement. So he's very excited about coming, and that'll be December 7th. And then also, the church, we're going to be collecting donations for the GED Student Fund for people going to taking GED classes here in Niagara Falls. If you would like to contribute, you can, if you want to write a check, you would put GED Student Fund on the memo line and just put it in the regular collections. Or if you would like to put cash, just put it in an envelope and say GED Student Funds. Thanks.
Any other announcements or information both for the congregation or for the community? Sounds good.
How many students do you have? We have about 38.
Our closing words today come from Robert Frost. He writes, "Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day, nothing gold can stay." We will extinguish our chalice. If you would all read together our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And Patty has a postlude for us.
Well, actually, y'all have it for me. I'm going to play the first verse of hymn 264, but you guys got to sing it. 264 in the
Where is that, Mr. Ewing?
The other day when Mr. Ewing was here for his lesson, I left my phone on the seat. And he was playing away, and I'm going, Mr. Ewing, I can't find my phone. Could you please call it for me? He was sitting on it.
Did you see this? It says,
Yeah,
would
I
you
don't
be
know
able
what
to
it
ask
is.
them about that when next time you go check mail?
Also,